Hello, very good morning. Welcome to JS Testing Academy. Welcome to the next part of video in our manual testing series, that is Agile model. The last video we saw about the different software development life cycle models like Waterfall model, prototype model, V model, rapid model, right, RAD model. Like that we saw some different SDLC models we saw. Now, this is going to be a very important video where we talk about the agile model. Now, the current world, if you ask me, in most of the companies they follow agile process. Why they go for agile means it has lot of advantages over the other models like waterfall, prototype, spiral model. Like it has lot of advantages. It exceeded, overcame all the disadvantages which is have in the other models. That's why we go for this agile model. So agile model is a combination of incremental and iterative model where you slowly increment one by one phase like development phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. Like that you slowly integrate with the first two more phases and slowly release to the customer. So it is a combination of incremental and iterative. Incremental, as I told you, increment one by one phase, whereas iterative, I told you, output of first phase will be the input of the next second phase that is being added here. Here the requirement will be keep on changing, right, since you are releasing short to the customer. The agile model, we call it a sprint or iteration, or release in scrum world we call it as a sprint, right? The sprint or release will be in 2 weeks to 3 weeks time. So it is going to be a short release to the customer. So regularly customer involvement will be more here. Regularly 2 weeks once they are going to get the code, they are going to give their feedback to us. So there might be a change in the requirement frequently. I'm giving an application to them. They tell this color is not good, can we change this color, or this functionality, can we change it? Instead of OK button, why not you put submit button? There might be a frequent releases here, short span of time, short releases, customer involvement in more. Suppose you are building a building, daily you are going and seeing a building. It's good, right? If any problem happens, you tell immediately the contractor, can you please change it? Rather like waterfall model showing at the last, you are telling now itself. That is a big, huge advantages here. If any changes or happens, immediately you rework here. That is a beautiful thing in the agile model. Okay, so that is called as an agile model, short leases. Okay, so next, right, agile process. Okay, there are various process in agile. These three are the very standard agile process. Like one is scrum, next one is extreme programming, and next one is kanban board. So these are the very standard process, right, in the agile world. Okay, scrum, extreme programming, and the kanban. Okay, so first one is scrum. This is the most companies they use, right? I've been worked in real time some 3 to 4 projects where I was working predominantly in scrum. I had a beautiful opportunity of working in kanban also. Is one of a US based project. Okay, scrum, right, is followed by mostly the scrum will have 2 weeks, yeah, right, yeah, sprint. Scrum, in scrum world we call it as a sprint. Sprint is nothing but a short release, is otherwise called as sprint. In scrum team there will be a product owner, there will be a scrum master, there will be a developer, tester, business analyst. Everyone will be there in your scrum team. So product manager is an in charge of the particular right team. He is the person who takes decisions. Who is the person who has the control over the entire team or the entire right application. Scrum master is a person who is like a leader who tracks the team and right tracks the progress of the project. Okay, So conducts all these meeting. He is in charge of all these meetings. In Scrum world, there is one thing called as backlog. Backlog is a place where all the user stories or requirement is kept. There is one thing called as product backlog and a sprint backlog. Product backlog, suppose I'm working in one bank or Reliance application where there are some 10 stories like logging in, adding a cart, buying a product, right? Like that, I have some rights, different modules. I'll create them into stories. Here in Agile world, Scrum world, they won't call it as a requirement, they'll call it as a stories. Stories is nothing but a set of requirements. So they'll keep all the stories in the product backlog. So on a sprint basis, I told you sprint will happen for 2 weeks. For every sprint, if there are some 10 stories in the product backlog, they'll move some 4 to 5 stories to a sprint backlog. That sprint, within the sprint, all those 4 stories should be completed. During the sprint planning meeting, they will take the prioritize the product backlog, and they will take the according to the priority and customer need. They will take some 4 5 stories and keep in the sprint backlog. Those stories should be completed within the sprint, within the 2 weeks of the sprint. Daily you'll have a scrum meeting, you'll have, and the scrum master is a person who conducts a particular meeting here. Got it? We'll see the other things in the coming slides. Okay. As I told you, there are two things: one is sprint backlog and a product backlog. Product backlog will have all the stories in the product backlog. Some 3 to 4 stories will be removed and kept in the sprint backlog. Those stories should be completed within the sprint or within the list. A sprint will have a 2 weeks. I was working in a project where a sprint will start on a Monday and next week Friday it will complete. This is what is sprint backlog. So that story should be completed within the sprint and it should be released and it should go live. Okay. So product backlog will have all the stories and sprint backlog will have the stories for that particular sprint. Okay. So as I told you, all the stories will be in the product backlog. Some 3 user stories will be moved from product backlog to the sprint backlog, and it will have subtasks, requirements, AC criteria. Like this is one of a Kanban board which I was working, where the stories will be moved to do. These are the stories should be completed. While doing, it will be moved to in progress stage, and then after completed, it will be moved to the done stage. This is a burn down chart they are telling. Burn down means how many stories have been completed. Like that, the board will be there. You'll have an Azure board or Jira board. You will see this where the task, what are things you have to do, and while picking up, you make it active and you do it in progress. And after completing, you change that to the done state. And you can see the burn chart, right? How many hours you burnt or did completed, that you can see in the board. Okay, this is a sample user story. User story will have a title, priority, and estimate to complete. User story will have a description of the story, that is nothing but a requirement, and the acceptance criteria. What is the precondition? What the action should come? What is the outcome? Those things will be there in the acceptance criteria. Like that, short start, they will create a story, and they will create in a keep it in the product backlog. Those stories will be pulled to the sprint backlog during the sprint. Hope you learned something. Okay, there is one thing called as estimation. Estimation, we'll have one meeting called as PBR meeting or a grooming session where we'll take the stories from the product backlog and estimate the stories. We'll give on the basis of Fibonacci series points. Suppose I estimate one story as point 2, that should be completed within a half day. If I give zero point 0.3, that should can take up to 2 days. If I give 5, it can take up to right for 5 to 6 days, and 8 it should complete within a week. 13 should can take more than week. This story points tells how many hours should be taken for that particular story. This will be estimated for the each story during your PBR session, that is product backlog refinement. They will estimate all these stories there. Hope you learned and understood, right? So the stories will be estimated based on the Fibonacci series, and this 1 and 2 tells the how many hours or how many days that story should be completed. So like that 3 4 stories will be right, pulled from the product backlog to the sprint backlog. Okay, and these are the 5 ceremonies, right, in the agile world. First is the sprint planning meeting. This will happen at the day one of the sprint, where they will take the stories from product backlog, put it in sprint backlog. They'll read the story, they'll discuss the story, and put right hours for the story, and they will keep assigned tasks for the story, like unit testing, system testing, test case preparation, automation tasks like test case review by business, so UAT testing. Like that they will assign task and put hours at particular for task. That will be decided during a sprint planning meeting. Like that 4 5 stories will be pulled from the product backlog to the sprint backlog. This will happen at the day one of the sprint. Next is daily scrum. It will happen daily 15 minutes at the start of the day. They will discuss what they did today, yesterday, what you are going to do today, and what you have any blockers. Like that, every person in the team, they are going to update their task in that particular meeting. If there is any issues or road blockers, you can discuss in that particular meeting. It is happen at daily. In my one of the US project which I am working, it will happen at 10 a.m. US time morning. Next one is the next ceremony is called as an sprint review. Sprint review, it will happen at the end of the sprint, where you give a demo to the client about the 5 stories which you completed. You show them the demo. You show that in the application what you added and what you tested. You record a video or a PPT and show them right what you completed in the application, what you are going to release during the sprint. You'll each person in one team or any scrum master or product manager or a senior person will give a demo about the completed task during the sprint to the client. Next one is sprint retro. It will take at the last day of the sprint. You look back what went well, what didn't go well, and what is the action item. Like for example, environment issue. Communication is not proper. Some story there's a problem. You didn't deploy on proper time. You didn't do complete testing on proper time. Or you did well. You completed everything on proper time. So what didn't go well? What did you do well? And action items. You will every person is going to add the what didn't well, what didn't go well. They will discuss in the meeting the lessons learned and issue faced. So that can be avoided in the next sprint or release. They will discuss in that particular meeting. Next one is a backlog refinement. This will happen in our project weekly on Wednesday or any one day for half an hour. They'll take the stories from the backlog, they'll do a grooming. As I told you, they will do estimation. They'll discuss the story, understand the story, and estimate the hours based on the Fibonacci series. So all the person after doing PBR only, it is that story is moved to the sprint, that is for the next sprint, for the sprint planning meeting. Without a story done PBR, it can be moved to the sprint. So they will discuss the story, understand the story, and estimate the story points to the story. This is called product backlog refinement, or some companies they use a word called as grooming session. Both are same. Okay, hope you learned all these five ceremonies. Okay, next there is one board called as kanban board. Kanban board, this is also one of a process where in the board, jira board, you'll have a backlog, what are things you to do, what are the reviewed, in progress and done. Like that slowly you'll be moving the task in the jira board. This is also one process of the agile model. Okay, next one is an extreme programming. Extreme programming is one of a process of agile where you do pair programming. A developer and tester will sit together and they'll work. It's also one process, but you'll have more days in the sprint or release. You won't call it a sprint, you call it as a release or an iteration. So you'll have stories added together, a tester and developer sit together, they test it, release it, check for acceptance, and release it to the customer. This is also one kind of an right agile process which we're following. But most companies they are going for an scrum. But some companies they go for extreme programming or pair programming. Here it will be called as iterations, not right sprint. There is no scrum master here or product owner here. Okay. Hope this video is useful to you. Continue to follow the channel and support us. Okay. Thank you. Meet you soon. Bye.